All right, 4 sealed boxes. That is what Pam Bondi's personal attorney carried into the Senate Intelligence Committee's secure facility on Tuesday morning at 9:15 a.m. Not couriered, not sent through intermediaries, not negotiated through back channels over weeks of procedural maneuvering. Hand-delivered. Her attorney walked through the door, submitted 4 boxes to the committee's classified intake officer, signed the chain of custody receipt, and walked out. Inside those boxes, classified documents, internal executive branch memos, and communication logs spanning January 2025 through November 2025. Documents that Trump's transition team publicly certified had been destroyed in compliance with records management protocols. Documents that the White House counsel's office told congressional investigators in writing did not exist. I have been inside the committee's preliminary intake summary since Tuesday night, 147 pages. I have read it twice. What I found in the sections that no outlet is covering yet is what this entire breakdown is about. This was not a leak. This was not a whistleblower dropping a thumb drive in a journalist's mailbox. This was a former Attorney General of the United States making a calculated, deliberate decision to place classified material directly into congressional hands, where it cannot be recalled, cannot be reclassified, and cannot be made to disappear a second time. If this kind of document-level breakdown is what you need the moment filings drop, subscribe right now and turn on notifications. I read every page. I translate the legal language into what it actually means. This story is moving faster than any headline can capture, and you need to be watching it in real time. Let's get into it. Start with who Bondi actually was inside this administration, because it is the only way to understand why Tuesday changes everything. Bondi was not a political appointee parked in a ceremonial office. She was not an outside advisor with limited visibility brought in to manage a narrow portfolio. She was the Attorney General of the United States, confirmed in early 2025, and from that moment forward, she sat at the exact intersection where every sensitive legal question, every national security determination, and every classified document dispute in the executive branch converged. Interagency memos reviewing foreign intelligence operations passed through her office. Classified briefing summaries were prepared for her review. Decisions about which documents would be preserved, which would be relocated to secure facilities, and which would be marked for scheduled destruction were made under frameworks that she was responsible for overseeing. She was not adjacent to the classified material. She was the person who managed the legal architecture governing how that material was handled, stored, and when necessary, eliminated. That is the detail that separates Tuesday's delivery from every previous document controversy connected to this administration. When a low-level staffer produces records, prosecutors get a fragment. When an outside advisor cooperates, prosecutors get a perspective. When the person who oversaw the entire classification and retention framework walks into a congressional facility carrying 4 boxes of material she preserved independently while the official copies were being destroyed around her, that is not a fragment and it is not a perspective. That is the whole picture. And that is exactly what Bondi just handed to the Senate Intelligence Committee. Now the documents themselves. This is what you came for, and I am going to walk you through it the same way I went through it, category by category, pulling out what matters. The committee's intake summary organizes what Bondi delivered into 3 distinct categories. Category 1, pages 12 through 47. Interagency memos documenting foreign policy decisions made between March and September of 2025. 17 separate memos. Not one of them was ever disclosed to the congressional oversight committees that are legally entitled to review them under the National Security Act. These are not ambiguous documents. They contain specific policy directives, sign-off chains, and implementation timelines for decisions involving foreign governments that Congress was never told about. Category 2, pages 48 through 89, Exhibit Series C, communication logs between senior White House officials and representatives of at least 3 foreign governments. All of them routed through non-official channels, personal devices, encrypted platforms, accounts that were never connected to the federal records preservation system. The routing was not incidental. It was architectural. These conversations were placed outside the preservation framework deliberately, so that when retention reviews occurred, there was nothing to find. Category 3, pages 90 through 134. Classified briefing summaries that match documents already in the official record with one critical difference. The versions Bondi preserved contain handwritten margin notes, annotations made during or immediately after briefings that capture real-time reactions, instructions, and decision-making context. The official versions in government archives have been scrubbed clean. Same documents, same dates, same classification markings, but the margin notes are gone. Bondi's copies have them. 134 pages across 3 categories. This is not a handful of misplaced papers someone found in a desk drawer. This is a systematic parallel archive built deliberately by someone who understood exactly what was being eliminated from the official record and made certain that a second copy survived. Now the question that matters most. Why were the official copies destroyed in the first place, and who gave the order? Bondi's documentation on this point is specific in a way that eliminates ambiguity. Page 117 of the intake summary references a directive issued in late November 2025. Not a general housekeeping instruction, not a routine records management cycle. A targeted directive identifying specific categories of classified material for immediate purging from executive branch record systems. Bondi's records trace the chain precisely. The instruction originated from a senior White House official whose name appears in the committee filing. It was transmitted through the Chief of Staff's office to the Records Management Division. The division executed the purge across 3 separate document storage systems over a 9-day period. And here is the part that changes everything. The official who ordered the destruction was informed in writing that the purge was complete. Every identified document accounted for and eliminated. That certification was false. Bondi had already copied the material. She had already moved it to a private location outside any government facility. The people who ordered the destruction believed it was done. They believed the record was clean. They operated for months on the assumption that those documents no longer existed anywhere. Bondi let them believe that. She maintained her parallel archive quietly, told no one, and waited. Why this matters legally is straightforward. Destruction of classified federal records triggers 18 U.S.C. Section 2071. That statute operates independently of any other investigation. It does not require proof of an underlying crime. The destruction itself is the crime. And Bondi just handed Congress the evidence that it happened, who ordered it, and who lied about its completion. The handover did not happen impulsively. It was engineered. 3 weeks before Tuesday's delivery, Bondi's legal team made initial contact with the Senate Intelligence Committee through a back channel that bypassed every normal congressional intake process. The first meeting was exploratory. Bondi's attorney presented a summary index describing the categories of material available without revealing specific contents. The committee's legal counsel reviewed that index and requested a second meeting. That second meeting established the framework. Classification handling protocols, chain of custody requirements, physical security arrangements for the material once it arrived. Every procedural detail locked down before a single page changed hands. Tuesday morning was the execution of a plan that had been built carefully over 21 days. And the legal architecture of that plan is what makes it irreversible. Once classified material enters congressional custody through a lawful oversight channel, the executive branch loses its ability to control that material. The White House cannot reclassify it to a higher level to restrict access. The White House cannot order its return. The White House cannot invoke executive privilege over documents that are now in the possession of a co-equal branch of government exercising its constitutional oversight authority. Bondi's legal team understood this completely. They did not hand the documents to journalists where they could be seized. They did not provide them to federal prosecutors where executive privilege arguments might delay access for months. They placed them inside the one institution in the American system where the executive branch has no retrieval mechanism. The Senate Intelligence Committee now holds material that Trump's team certified was destroyed. That material is beyond reach. No motion, no privilege claim, no executive order can pull it back. Bondi did not just deliver documents on Tuesday. She placed them permanently outside the control of every person who wanted them to disappear. Now, what those documents actually reveal about foreign money? This is where Tuesday's delivery connects directly to everything Bondi testified about in Courtroom 14B and expands it in ways that nobody has reported yet. Her earlier testimony established the Qatar Development Project, $340 million sovereign wealth fund financing, a deliberate structure designed to avoid CFIUS review. The congressional documents show that Qatar was not the only arrangement. Pages 52 through 67 of the intake summary reference communications involving 2 additional foreign governments whose financial relationships with entities connected to the administration were never disclosed in any public filing. The first involves a Gulf state that does not appear in any previous reporting on this case. $94 million routed through a Luxembourg-based intermediary fund between April and July of 2025. The communication logs show 3 direct exchanges between a senior White House official and a representative of that government's sovereign investment authority during the same period. The second involves a Southeast Asian government and a series of infrastructure concessions valued at approximately $210 million. The margin notes on the classified briefing summaries from that period are what make this devastating. They show real-time annotations referencing the financial arrangements alongside policy recommendations on trade and regulatory matters directly affecting those same foreign governments. The timing is not circumstantial. The documents place financial discussions and policy decisions within the same meetings, the same memos, the same conversations. Decisions that were presented publicly as independent policy judgments were being made in direct temporal proximity to undisclosed financial arrangements involving the governments those policies affected. The documents do not just show that hidden money existed, they show that policy was shaped by it. Trump's response came fast. Tuesday night, 7 posts across 2 hours on Truth Social. He called Bondi a traitor, a thief, and a deeply disturbed individual who stole classified material she had no right to possess. His legal team released a formal statement Wednesday morning, arguing that Bondi's entire archive is the product of unauthorized retention of classified documents outside approved government facilities, and that every page she delivered to Congress is therefore legally tainted and procedurally inadmissible. That argument deserves serious consideration rather than dismissal. A former senior DOJ official, now at a Washington law firm, said Wednesday that the retention question has genuine procedural merit. Classified material has specific handling requirements. Bondi removed documents from government systems and stored them at a private residence. That is a violation of established protocols, regardless of her reasons for doing it. The argument has weight, but the congressional and prosecutorial response points in a different direction. The committee's legal counsel issued a statement Wednesday afternoon asserting that the content of the documents and what they reveal about destruction of federal records and undisclosed foreign financial arrangements outweighs chain of custody objections. Multiple legal analysts have noted that whistleblower protections may apply directly to Bondi's situation, given that the material she retained documents the very destruction she was preserving evidence against. She did not take random classified files home. She preserved specific records that were being targeted for elimination by the people those records implicate. Both arguments are real. Both will be litigated. But here is what separates this from a situation where procedural challenges might prevail. The memos have timestamps that can be independently verified against government server logs. The communication metadata exists in systems Bondi never controlled. The handwritten margin notes can be authenticated through forensic handwriting analysis. You can attack her motives. You can challenge her authority to retain the material. You cannot attack a timestamp. You cannot cross-examine metadata. Now the portion that nobody can see yet. Of the 147 pages in the committee's intake summary, 38 pages have been restricted to a subset of senators holding the highest available clearance levels, not the full committee, a smaller group. Specific names, specific transaction identifiers, and at least one foreign government designation have been sealed within hours of the material arriving at the committee's facility. That speed matters. When a congressional committee receives classified material and immediately restricts portions of it beyond the standard committee-level classification, it signals one of 3 things. First, ongoing intelligence equities, meaning active operations or sources that disclosure would compromise. Second, unindicted individuals whose identification in the public record would interfere with pending or anticipated legal proceedings. Third, Active diplomatic relationships where public identification of a foreign government's involvement would create immediate geopolitical consequences that the committee is not prepared to manage yet. Any of those explanations means the sealed 38 pages contain material that is more sensitive and more significant than the 109 pages the full committee can access. The pattern is consistent with Bondi's earlier sealed courtroom testimony. More than half of her 4-hour testimony remained under seal. The most consequential material has been protected at every stage of this process. The committee has scheduled a closed classified hearing for Thursday of next week. A second hearing, this one with select members only, is tentatively set for the following Monday. Those two dates determine how much of what Bondi delivered begins moving toward the public record. Watch Thursday. Watch the following Monday. The sealed names are where this case expands from the people already implicated into the people who still think they are safe. Zoom out from the documents for a moment and look at what Tuesday actually changed structurally. Inside every administration, there is a foundational assumption that governs how people behave in sensitive rooms. If records are destroyed, they are gone. That assumption is what allows people to speak freely in meetings that are kept off official schedules. It is what allows directives to be given verbally rather than in writing. It is what allows someone to order a purge of classified material and sleep soundly once the certification comes back confirming completion. As of Tuesday, that assumption is provably false. Bondi maintained a parallel archive. She copied the material before the destruction order was executed. She stored it outside any government facility where it could be located and eliminated. She held it for months while the people who ordered the destruction operated on the certainty that those records no longer existed. And then she delivered every page to a body that the executive branch cannot reach. Every current and former official who was in those rooms, who signed those memos, who participated in those communications, now knows that a complete record of what they said and did sits in congressional hands. Their exposure is being evaluated against that record right now, whether they cooperate or not. That is a different calculation than any of them were making a week ago. And it extends beyond this administration permanently. Every future official who sits in a room where something questionable is being discussed will carry the knowledge that Pam Bondi sat in those rooms too. She was told not to document. She documented anyway. She was told the records were destroyed. She had already copied them. The assumption that destroyed means gone just died on the floor of the Senate Intelligence Committee's secure facility. It is not coming back. The pattern across this entire story is the same. Information was hidden because the people hiding it assumed that ordinary citizens would never have access to it, would never understand the mechanisms behind it, would never be in a position to act on what they learned. That assumption is what channels like this exist to challenge. Every breakdown, every document translation, every filing pulled apart page by page is about closing the gap between what powerful people know and what you know. And closing gaps is what matters right now. Not just in courtrooms and congressional hearing rooms, but in your own life. Speaking of which, if you have been feeling the squeeze of rising costs and tighter budgets while watching the people at the top structure million-dollar deals through shell companies designed to disappear, here is something that might actually land in your pocket rather than someone else's offshore account. Amazon is currently running a program giving away $750 gift cards to eligible residents in the US, UK, Canada, and Australia. It is real. It is active right now, and it takes about 2 minutes to enter. If you are eligible, you can enter by clicking the link on the channel page or by scanning the QR code that will appear on screen. To scan it, just open your phone camera, point it at the square on screen, and tap the link that appears. If you are watching on your phone, tap the channel profile picture to go to the channel page where you will see the link. A screenshot will appear on screen showing you exactly where to find it. Follow the entry steps and you are in. $750 toward groceries, household essentials, whatever you actually need right now. While the people in these documents were routing millions through structures that existed for days before vanishing, this is money that could end up in your hands through a process that is completely transparent,